In the sprawling pantheon of Disney's Lion King universe, family lineages are typically crystal clear. Simba's heritage traces directly through Mufasa to the great kings of the past. Scar's parentage connects to Ahadi and Uru. Even secondary characters like Kiara and Kion have their bloodlines established without question. Yet there exists one glaring, inexplicable absence that has puzzled fans for decades: the complete erasure of Nala's father from the narrative. This isn't merely an oversight. Disney's character development process is meticulous, especially for major protagonists. Every design choice, every personality trait, every relationship dynamic serves a purpose. When a character as central as Nala exists without paternal acknowledgement, it signals something far more deliberate than simple storytelling economy. Consider the evidence of this absence. Throughout the original film, Nala's mother Serafina appears briefly, establishing maternal lineage. But nowhere, not in dialogue, not in background visuals, not even in expanded universe materials, does any male lion claim or acknowledge Nala as offspring. This creates a biological impossibility within the Pride Land's established social structure, where lineage determines hierarchy and mating rights are strictly regulated. The conventional explanation suggests Nala's father was simply another Pride male who perished during Scar's reign. This theory crumbles under scrutiny. If Nala descended from acceptable Pride Land stock, her parentage would enhance her status as Simba's mate. Royal bloodlines are assets to be displayed, not hidden. The deliberate obscuration suggests something more complex, perhaps something that would fundamentally alter how audiences perceive the Lion King narrative. This investigation employs what can be termed visual DNA analysis, the systematic examination of character design elements that reveal hidden connections. Disney's animation principles operate on genetic logic. Offspring inherit specific traits from parents: facial structure, eye shape, coloring patterns, and even personality markers expressed through body language and movement. These elements function as breadcrumbs, leading observant viewers toward truths the surface narrative conceals. The methodology is straightforward but revealing. First, catalog Nala's unique physical characteristics that distinguish her from typical Pride Lands lionesses. Second, compare these traits against all potential paternal candidates present during her conception timeline. Third, analyze behavioral patterns and personality traits that suggest inherited tendencies. Finally, examine the political and social implications that would necessitate paternal identity concealment. What emerges from this analysis challenges fundamental assumptions about Pride Land's hierarchy, Simba's reign legitimacy, and the true power dynamics governing the kingdom. The evidence points toward a paternal identity so controversial, so potentially destabilizing, that Disney chose complete narrative suppression over revelation. The implications extend beyond simple family trees. If Nala's father possessed significant political standing, her offspring with Simba would carry dual royal bloodlines. If her father represented a rival faction, the union becomes political alliance rather than romantic destiny. If her father's identity contradicts established moral frameworks, it explains the decades-long cover-up that has left one of Disney's most prominent characters genealogically orphaned. The visual evidence exists, scattered across multiple films and supplementary materials. Character designers embedded clues in facial structures, animators revealed connections through movement patterns, and voice actors unknowingly provided behavioral inheritances that point toward paternal identity. These elements, when assembled systematically, form a compelling case that solves one of Disney's most enduring mysteries. The investigation begins with Nala herself, not as audiences have been conditioned to see her, but as forensic evidence in an unsolved case that has implications far beyond simple family identification. The forensic examination of Nala's physical characteristics reveals anomalies that immediately distinguish her from established Pride Lands lineages. Unlike the rounded, softer facial features typical of indigenous lionesses, Nala possesses distinctly angular bone structure, high cheekbones, a more pronounced jawline, and eye placement that suggests non-Pride Lands ancestry. Her coloring presents the first major clue. While Pride Lands lionesses display consistent golden tan variations, Nala's base coat carries subtle blue-gray undertones, particularly visible in shadowed scenes. This cooler palette indicates genetic influence from regions beyond the Pride Lands' established territory. More significantly, her eye color, a distinctive blue-green rather than the amber standard, points toward specific bloodline origins that Disney's color theory deliberately encoded. The facial structure analysis yields startling results. Nala's cranial proportions mirror those found in only one other character type within the Lion King universe: the regal, angular features associated with ancient royal bloodlines. Her muzzle length, ear positioning, and the specific curve of her brow ridge create a genetic signature that appears nowhere else among confirmed Pride Lands natives. Disney's character design philosophy operates on deliberate inheritance patterns. Simba inherits Mufasa's robust build and confident stance, while carrying Sarabi's gentler eye shape. Kiara displays clear parental trait combinations from both Simba and Nala. These design choices aren't accidental. They follow established genetic logic that allows audiences to trace family connections visually. Applying this same analytical framework to Nala reveals inherited traits that don't align with any confirmed Pride Lands male. Her distinctive gait, more fluid and purposeful than typical lioness movement, suggests paternal influence from a character with specific locomotive characteristics. Her hunting posture, captured in brief animation sequences, displays techniques not taught within Pride Lands culture but rather inherited through genetic memory. The comparison analysis becomes revealing when examining potential candidates. Scar's angular features and distinctive coloring create partial matches, but his darker palette and more pronounced facial scarring eliminate him as a genetic contributor. Mufasa's robust build and warm coloring contradict Nala's more delicate bone structure and cooler undertones. However, one character type consistently matches Nala's physical profile. The mysterious lions referenced in expanded universe materials but never fully revealed in main narratives. These figures, described as possessing noble bearing and distinctive coloring, align perfectly with Nala's anomalous characteristics. The eye analysis proves particularly revealing. Nala's blue-green irises contain flecks of gold that create a specific pattern, one that appears in only select characters throughout Disney's lion hierarchy. This isn't random color choice, but deliberate genetic coding that links her to a specific bloodline, carefully obscured from casual observation. Her facial expressions provide additional forensic evidence. Nala's default expression carries an inherent authority that distinguishes her from other lionesses. This isn't learned behavior, but inherited bearings, the kind of natural leadership presence that suggests royal ancestry beyond her established connections to Simba. The body language analysis reveals movement patterns that contradict Pride Lands' cultural norms. Nala's posture, particularly in confrontational scenes, displays confidence levels typically associated with lions of established royal standing. Her tactical awareness during hunt sequences suggests inherited strategic thinking rather than learned skills. Most significantly, her interaction patterns with established authority figures reveal telling details. Unlike other lionesses who defer naturally to male leadership, Nala challenges authority with the unconscious certainty of someone whose bloodline grants equal standing. This behavioral pattern suggests paternal inheritance from a figure of considerable political significance. The voice analysis adds another layer of evidence. Nala's vocal patterns, particularly her authoritative tone during leadership moments, carry inflections that mirror specific character types within Disney's royal hierarchy. These aren't conscious performance choices, but inherited speech patterns that reveal genetic connections. The cumulative visual evidence points toward a paternal figure whose identity Disney has systematically concealed through narrative omission. The genetic markers are consistent, the inherited traits are undeniable, and the behavioral patterns confirm bloodline connections that would fundamentally alter audience understanding of Pride Lands politics. The timeline analysis will reveal why this genetic truth required such elaborate concealment, and which character's identity explains every anomalous trait Nala displays. Establishing Nala's birth timeline requires precise examination of canonical events and their chronological relationships. Based on visual aging patterns and narrative structure, Nala's conception occurred during a specific window that dramatically limits potential paternal candidates, and reveals why her parentage required systematic concealment. The critical timeframe spans approximately 18 months before the original film's opening sequence. During this period, the Pride Lands operated under Mufasa's reign, with established social hierarchies governing mating rights and territorial boundaries. Adult male lions present during this window included Mufasa himself, Scar, and potentially visiting males from allied territories, though no such visitors appear in canonical materials. Analyzing Serafina's behavioral patterns during this crucial period provides essential clues. Unlike other lionesses who maintain consistent social positioning, Serafina exhibits notable behavioral shifts that suggest significant personal circumstances. Her interactions with authority figures display subtle deference patterns that indicate elevated social standing rather than typical pride member status. The political climate surrounding Nala's conception reveals additional complications. Mufasa's reign, while stable, faced underlying tensions that wouldn't fully manifest until Scar's eventual coup. These tensions required careful diplomatic management, including strategic alliances that might necessitate unconventional arrangements to maintain kingdom stability. Scar's elimination as paternal candidate becomes clear through timeline analysis. His documented obsession with Sarabi during this period, as revealed in deleted scenes and expanded materials, places his romantic focus elsewhere. Additionally, his physical distance from Pride social activities during Nala's conception window, evidenced by his increasing association with hyena territories, removes him from consideration. Mufasa's timeline presents more complex considerations. His documented presence during the conception period and his established role as Pride patriarch create initial suspicion. However, deeper analysis reveals critical obstacles to this theory. Mufasa's mating with Sarabi was publicly acknowledged and celebrated, while any additional relationships would have required similar ceremonial recognition within Prideland's culture. The evidence points toward a more sophisticated explanation. The presence of a male lion, whose identity required protection for political reasons. This figure possessed sufficient status to access Pride territories, adequate political importance to necessitate discretion, and genetic characteristics that explain Nala's anomalous traits. Examining the broader Lion King timeline reveals a crucial gap in documented Prideland's history, a period when certain male lions disappeared from canonical narratives without explanation. These disappearances coincide precisely with Nala's conception timeline, suggesting deliberate narrative suppression rather than natural story evolution. The pattern becomes clear when analyzing other Disney royal lineages. Characters with politically sensitive parentage consistently experience similar treatment, either complete omission from narratives or heavy disguising of true relationships. Nala's case follows this established pattern, indicating paternal identity significant enough to warrant decades-long concealment. Regional territory analysis provides additional context. During Nala's conception period, Prideland's boundaries remained fluid, with neighboring territories maintaining complex diplomatic relationships. These relationships might have included temporary alliances requiring discrete personal connections to ensure political stability. The visitor theory gains credibility when examining Prideland's diplomatic protocols. Royal visits from allied territories would require appropriate hospitality, potentially including access to Pride social structures. Such visits might produce offspring whose mixed heritage could complicate future political arrangements. However, the most compelling timeline evidence points toward a resident Prideland's male, whose relationship with Serafina required concealment for reasons beyond simple social propriety. This male possessed established territorial rights, genetic traits matching Nala's anomalous characteristics, and political standing sufficient to necessitate permanent narrative suppression. The behavioral timeline analysis reveals telling patterns. Serafina's interaction with this mystery male would have required sustained contact over multiple months, suggesting someone with legitimate, ongoing presence within Pride territories rather than a temporary visitor. Cross-referencing canonical appearances with conception timeline requirements eliminates most potential candidates, leaving one figure whose presence, genetics, and political standing align perfectly with all forensic evidence. This individual's identity explains not only Nala's physical anomalies, but also the sophisticated cover-up that has protected this secret for over 3 decades. The timeline conspiracy wasn't random narrative omission, but deliberate protection of information that would fundamentally alter audience understanding of Prideland's power structures and Simba's legitimate claim to royal authority. Behavioral genetics in Disney's character development operates on the principle that personality traits, decision-making patterns, and social tendencies pass from parent to offspring as reliably as physical characteristics. Nala's psychological profile reveals inherited behavioral markers that function as genetic fingerprints, pointing unmistakably toward paternal identity. Her leadership approach provides the first critical behavioral evidence. Unlike typical Prideland's lionesses who lead through consensus and cooperation, Nala demonstrates command authority that emerges naturally rather than through learned experience. During the original film's pivotal confrontation with Simba in the jungle, her strategic argumentation and unwavering moral certainty display inherited confidence patterns found in only specific bloodlines. This leadership style differs fundamentally from maternal influence. Serafina, while competent, never displays the commanding presence or strategic thinking that characterizes Nala's approach to complex situations. The behavioral gap suggests paternal inheritance from a figure whose natural authority transcended typical social hierarchies. Nala's conflict resolution patterns reveal additional genetic markers. Her tendency toward direct confrontation rather than diplomatic negotiation mirrors decision-making approaches associated with military or strategic leadership backgrounds. During tense moments throughout the films, she consistently chooses decisive action over prolonged deliberation, a behavioral trait that suggests inherited tactical thinking. The tactical analysis becomes particularly revealing when examining her hunting sequences. Nala's approach displays sophisticated strategic planning that exceeds typical Pride Lands techniques. Her ability to coordinate complex group maneuvers and anticipate prey behavior patterns suggests inherited knowledge from a figure with extensive combat or hunting expertise beyond standard Pride education. Her parenting philosophy with Kiara and Kion provides crucial behavioral DNA evidence. Nala's approach emphasizes independence, strategic thinking, and moral courage rather than traditional protection-focused mothering. This methodology mirrors parenting styles associated with leaders who prioritize capability development over safety, suggesting paternal influence from someone accustomed to preparing offspring for significant responsibilities. The psychological profiling reveals Nala's relationship with authority figures. Unlike other Pride members who accept hierarchical structures naturally, she challenges leadership decisions when they conflict with her moral compass. This pattern suggests inherited traits from someone whose own relationship with authority was complex or contested. Her strategic thinking during crisis situations provides additional evidence. Throughout both films, Nala demonstrates tactical awareness that exceeds her documented training. Her ability to assess complex political situations and develop effective response strategies suggests inherited, analytical capabilities from a figure with extensive leadership experience. The social interaction analysis reveals telling patterns. Nala's natural ease when interacting with royalty and political figures suggests inherited familiarity with power structures. Her behavior around Simba's family displays comfort levels that indicate bloodline connections to similar social strata, rather than learned adaptation. Her moral decision-making patterns provide the most significant behavioral evidence. Nala's ethical framework operates on principles that sometimes conflict with Pride Land's cultural norms, suggesting inherited value systems from someone whose moral compass developed under different circumstances or responsibilities. The rebellious tendencies require careful analysis. Nala's willingness to challenge established order isn't teenage rebellion, but principled resistance based on inherited understanding of justice and proper leadership. This behavioral pattern points toward paternal influence from someone whose own relationship with traditional authority was complicated by superior moral clarity. Her protective instincts reveal additional genetic markers. Unlike typical maternal protection that focuses on physical safety, Nala's protective approach emphasizes preparing her cubs for independence and moral leadership. This methodology suggests inherited parenting philosophy from someone who understood that true protection requires capability development. The communication analysis provides final behavioral evidence. Nala's ability to articulate complex strategic concepts and moral arguments suggests inherited intellectual capabilities from a figure whose own communication skills operated at elevated levels. Her natural eloquence during confrontational scenes displays inherited rhetorical abilities rather than learned techniques. The cumulative behavioral evidence points toward paternal inheritance from a figure whose leadership experience, tactical expertise, moral authority, and strategic thinking capabilities align perfectly with Nala's demonstrated characteristics. These aren't learned behaviors, but inherited traits that reveal genetic connections to someone whose identity would explain every anomalous aspect of her psychological profile. The behavioral DNA analysis confirms what physical evidence suggested. Nala's father possessed significant leadership credentials, complex relationship with traditional authority, and moral standing that required his identity's protection through complete narrative concealment. The convergence of physical evidence, timeline analysis, and behavioral genetics points toward a conclusion so controversial that Disney has maintained absolute narrative silence for over 3 decades. The smoking gun lies not in what the films reveal, but in a single frame of animation that exposes the most carefully guarded secret in Prideland's history. During the original film's opening sequence, a brief moment shows Serafina's reaction to the presentation of Simba. Her expression contains elements that initially appear to be general joy, but upon forensic examination reveals something far more complex. The subtle facial animation displays recognition patterns consistent with someone viewing their grandchild, not just witnessing a royal birth. This micro-expression, lasting less than 2 seconds, provides the definitive visual proof that solves the mystery. Nala's father is Mufasa himself. The evidence supporting this revelation is overwhelming once the pieces align. Mufasa's documented presence during the conception timeline, his genetic compatibility with Nala's anomalous traits, and his political standing that would necessitate absolute secrecy, create a perfect convergence of forensic evidence. The physical analysis confirms genetic inheritance. Nala's angular facial structure mirrors Mufasa's bone construction, while her distinctive eye coloring contains the same golden flecks visible in close-up shots of the former king. Her body language and natural authority directly parallel Mufasa's leadership bearing, suggesting direct paternal inheritance rather than learned behavior. The timeline conspiracy becomes clear through this lens. Mufasa's relationship with Serafina occurred during a period when Sarabi's own fertility created questions about royal succession. Prideland's customs required male lions to ensure lineage continuation through multiple partnerships when primary unions faced challenges. This arrangement, while politically necessary, required discretion to maintain social stability. Serafina's elevated status within the pride structure supports this theory. Unlike other lionesses who maintain standard social positioning, she displays subtle behavioral patterns consistent with someone whose connection to royalty transcends typical pride membership. Her confident interaction with royal family members suggests intimate familiarity with power structures rather than deferential relationships. The behavioral DNA analysis proves decisive. Nala's strategic thinking, moral authority, and natural leadership capabilities directly mirror Mufasa's documented characteristics. Her approach to parenthood with Kiara and Kion follows Mufasa's own philosophy of preparing offspring for leadership responsibilities rather than simply providing protection. The cover-up operates on multiple levels of narrative protection. First, acknowledging Nala's true parentage would compromise Simba's claim to exclusive royal bloodline. If Nala possesses equal royal heritage, their union becomes political alliance rather than love story, fundamentally altering the narrative's romantic elements. Second, revealing Mufasa's relationship with Serafina would introduce adult themes inappropriate for Disney's target audience. The complexity of royal mating arrangements and political necessity conflicts with simplified storytelling approaches designed for family viewing. Third, the revelation would create succession complications throughout the expanded universe. Nala's children with Simba would carry double royal bloodlines, potentially superseding other characters' claims to leadership positions. This genetic advantage would require extensive narrative restructuring across multiple films and supplementary materials. The political implications extend beyond simple family drama. If Nala inherited Mufasa's leadership qualities through direct bloodline, her influence over Prideland's governance becomes hereditary right rather than spousal privilege. This dynamic would fundamentally alter power structures established throughout the franchise. Disney's decision to suppress this information reflects corporate storytelling priorities that favor narrative simplicity over genealogical accuracy. The Mouse House consistently chooses accessible emotional arcs over complex political relationships that might confuse younger audiences or require extensive explanation. The evidence trail was deliberately obscured through character design choices that emphasize Nala's connection to Serafina while minimizing visual similarities to Mufasa. Animation teams received specific instructions to avoid creating obvious paternal resemblances that might prompt audience speculation about hidden relationships. Voice direction followed similar suppression patterns. Nala's vocal characteristics were developed to suggest independence and strength, without directly echoing Mufasa's speech patterns that might reveal genetic connections. The performance walked a careful line between inherited authority and learned confidence. The revelation recontextualizes major plot points throughout the franchise. Nala's moral authority during confrontations with Simba reflects inherited royal judgment rather than external perspective. Her strategic thinking during crisis situations stems from genetic leadership capabilities rather than exceptional personal development. Understanding Nala's true parentage illuminates Disney's most sophisticated character development conspiracy, one that protected narrative simplicity at the expense of biological truth, creating one of animation's most enduring mysteries while hiding evidence in plain sight for audiences willing to examine the forensic details that reveal Prideland's most explosive family secret. The case is closed. The evidence is overwhelming. Nala's father has been hiding in the great kings of the past all along,